Now, Lil Yachty has recently been making waves for all the wrong reasons, or maybe all the right reasons. I don't know. It depends on if you believe all press is good press. It just depends. But recently, he sat down. He was in an interview with Tierra Whack, where he said that from his perspective, he believes hip hop is in a terrible place. Now, while I have nothing against Lil Yachty, I want to talk about areas where I think in his statement, in his point that he was trying to make, areas where I feel like he does have a point, and areas where I feel like he does not have a point. Basically, where I think he's right and where I think he's wrong. So, I mean, first of all, I want to just say that, and I gotta call this out because for whatever reason, nobody's calling this out, but people have been saying this same thing that Yachty is saying. They've been saying this forever now, man. They've been saying not even just with hip hop, just with music in general, man. Like, and this is another issue. A lot of people they stay in their bubbles, so they don't realize a lot of what they complain about isn't really that unique. But listen, they've been. I'm old enough now to remember the ringtone era, and I can tell you, in case you're either too old to remember or too young to remember, listen, they were saying the same thing about, oh man, hip hop is dead. It's dead. It's in a terrible place. It sucks. It's this. Is that. They were saying this in the 2010s. They were also saying this in the 2000s. Shoot, I bet you they were probably saying this in the 90s too at the time. But I'm not gonna say that for a fact, obviously, because I was born in '96, so I grew up in the 2000s and 2010s. But again, like I said, they said the same thing in the 2000s. They said the same thing in the 2010s. Now, people like Yachty, they're trying to say the same thing in the 2020s, and I guarantee you they'll be saying this in the 2030s. For whatever reason, people hate, regardless of genre, because again, a lot of people in hip hop they got to get outside of their bubble regardless of genre, a lot of people they love romanticizing the past and tearing down whatever's out right now. And it kind of is a full circle moment because it's ironic that once upon a time, Little Yachty was the generation of music where people were saying this about, and now he's turning around and doing the same thing. But either way, it is what it is. Continuing on, he said that hip hop was the number one genre for 10 plus years. That is just completely incorrect. It only became the number one genre like a few years ago, around like 2019, 2020, and it only maintained that run for like, just a short period of time, like a few years, which again is inevitable. Nothing stays on top forever. Like all of these when it comes to whatever's popular in America, like whatever the zeitgeist is or whatever, all of that stuff is gonna just come in waves. It's gonna fluctuate. But just because something is starting to, slip from the top spot does not mean it's in a terrible place. He's low key trying to equate commercial success to quality of music, and he's trying to equate the commercial success to what's happening in the actual music itself being released and saying that, oh, the music isn't good and so that's why it's not selling, which isn't, well, that's not necessarily true, because ironically enough, good music in many cases is usually what sells the least, like a lot, regardless of genre. Even in pop music, some of the best pop music is never the most popular. I'm like, it is what it is. Now, is he right when he says, hey, it's in a bad, hip hop's in a terrible place? Kind of, but again, no, that's more so on a mainstream level, not so much underground. As we all know, underground is usually where all the real innovation happens and where all the unique artists are, because since they're not signed and since many of them don't want to be signed, they're usually going to be the ones that take more risk and, explore and just do whatever they want to do. But as far as him being right about music not, hip hop music not being in the best place, the part that's kind of ironic is Little Yachty played a role in that. Whether he wants to accept that or not, he played a role in that. The music that he put out when he first came out, it wasn't good. He's put out a lot of average to below average music. That's just reality. To his credit, he's come through with unique and original tone to his music. I'm not gonna say sound because he still uses a lot of the same beats these other people use, but a unique sound because of the fact that his voice is so distinct. But still, again, in general, there was a lot of stuff he put out that wasn't good. And I remember when he first came out, he kept saying how his favorite rapper was Little B. Now, no offense to Little B, I always thought Little B was like a funny character and entertaining. But again, let's not pretend like Little B was cranking out all this good music in the 2010s. Like, nah, man. Like, just like how Little B in the early 2010s was the poster child for like bad rap, Lil Yachty, he carried that torch in a sense, at least for a short period of time. I know a lot of people feel differently about his recent stuff, but we can't just forget about what he first started putting out. It just is what it is. Now, Yachty also defended himself against this argument by saying, "Hey, when he made the song Poland, it was original, and you've never heard anything like that before." Now, to his credit, as far as like his delivery, again, like I said before, he's created some unique music in his career because of how distinct his voice is, and even with his approach to melodies. Like he has created a unique, somewhat original lane, which he does deserve credit for. But also, we got to remember, just because something is different doesn't automatically mean it's high quality. It doesn't mean that person tried that hard. Like it just is what it is. Now, Little Yachty said that there's been a decline in content, which is cap. That's 100% cap. We are in the true golden age. The true golden age. Hear me clear. I don't care if this is a hot take or not. We are in the true golden age. Right now, there is an overabundance of a lot of good music. The downside, of course, is there's also an overabundance of bad, mediocre, and slightly above average music. So, but I guess you can, instead of calling it a golden age, you could call it a gold rush. Because now, even though there's so much great stuff out there, you got to go through even more effort to find it now compared to, in the past where certain stuff might have been force fed to you. But either way, there's way more talented people out now independently on an underground level than there were, 10, 20 years ago. So, I mean, it is what it is. But as far as like on a mainstream level, has there been a decline in content? Technically, but that's a manufactured decline. That's not like, oh, naturally that, oh, people can't rap anymore or people aren't creative anymore. No, people are still more creative than ever. The fact of the matter is, a lot of the people that these labels are signing and pushing on these major platforms, they're just not very good. And that speaks more about the label's agenda than it does the artist, honestly. He also kind of made a comment saying that people that read blogs are old, which I mean, I guess kind of, but at the same time, eh, like the demographic of people that read or currently read blogs, ironically enough, they're in Yachty's age range. They're like mid to late 20s, early 30s. So I think like he's kind of reaching on that. He spoke about it as if people like in their 50s and 60s are reading blogs like that. Like when that's not really the case, but still, he referenced the charts to validate his point about hip hop being in a terrible place, which I got to circle back around to that because the reason that's a flawed argument is because, like I said earlier, most of the quality hip hop you that is out there, you will not find it on charts. You will not find it on the radio. You will not find it on these mainstream playlists like Rap Caviar because all of those platforms are all in the back pocket of these major record labels. So why on earth would they? Of course, they're not going to make it a fair, a level playing field where a wide range of artists who are independent and signed and making a whole different types of music can all somehow manage to get to these levels. Because if that happens, you'll see a growing number of artists realize, well, we don't need you, which is what they don't want because they still want to just leech off of artists. And again, like I said, that's not even just a hip hop thing. Most of the best music across all of music, it's usually not on the mainstream radar. When you listen to radio stations, it's the same 8 songs that they play in rotation 24/7. Why would you use that as some sort of barometer to 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 try to gauge how good of a place hip hop is in or not? Like that doesn't make much sense to me. But either way, he also said in like a follow-up clip, trying to defend himself and clarify his point, he was saying that he meant he meant from a creativity standpoint, it's in a terrible place, and then he tried to clean it up and say that he wasn't talking about rappers' ability to like rap or lyricism or whatever. He basically was saying that rappers aren't being creative, which is still him taking shots at people, even though he's trying to clean it up. It's him literally saying that everybody out now isn't original. So I don't know why he was still pretending like he had love for him. It's still kind of a backhanded compliment. But I mean, either way, now he also made a point where he said that nobody's taking risk. That's cap. That is 100% cap. Now he needs to start being more specific. Now, if he said on a mainstream level, like when it comes to signed artists and artists on the radio and stuff like that, they're not taking risk. Yes, he is right. Record labels aren't taking risk by signing unique artists. Yes, that is right. For the most part, yes, that is right. But again, it can't be understated that on an underground level, on an independent level, if you don't want to use the word underground, on an indie level, there is a overabundance of artists making unique music. It is what it is. They are, and they're taking all the risk that they want to take. But guess what? Record labels aren't the ones taking risks, and that's leading them to try to sign to push whatever agenda they're trying to push and sign the same 5 artists, but just repackage them in the frame of different people, but they're just trying to recreate the next Little Baby, the next Drake, the next 21 Savage. They're just finding other random people hoping that they could just fit that mold. So whose fault is that really? That to me sounds like it's the label's fault for trying that. It sounds like it's the artist's fault for being that, and it also sounds like it's the casual fans' fault for still supporting that. But that's a conversation for another video. But Yachty also called out the fact that people don't truly support the underground, because he also did acknowledge the fact that, hey, there's people who are gonna say that, oh, you don't listen to this person and that person, and then he basically just said, you guys really don't support the underground like that. If you did, they would have blown up. Now he is right about that, at least partially right. He is right. Like, there are a lot of people who will say these things, but then they themselves have never tried to buy an indie. They've never financially supported an indie artist. They don't use platforms like Bandcamp where you could directly, pay artists for their work. They're not using platforms like the new platform that just popped up. It's called like Even or something. They're not doing that. They're not joining artists' Patreons. Like, they're not trying in any way to support local artists. That is true. But at the same time, it's still a good point that other people are making towards him, just to make the point that there are creative people out there. He also implies that he deserves more respect because he's written a lot of stuff for people, and if people knew what he's written, it would blow their minds. And while he may have a point, my whole stance on that is, if you're not gonna say what it is, just I don't think people should keep that in mind. I don't think people should consider that if you're not gonna just name at least 3 or 4 songs. Like, in academics, when he was defending Little Yachty, he did the same thing where he kept saying, he wrote like 15 hits in the past year, and it's like, bro, if you're not gonna say what song it is, we can't give you credit for that. Then, like, you can't take credit and then not tell everybody what it is. Either be a ghostwriter or don't be a ghostwriter. Like stop trying to take this approach where you keep trying to hint that you've written some hit songs for people, but then when people ask you what song it is, you don't got the heart to say it. I don't think that should count. The only song that we possibly know that he played a part in is that City Girl song Act Up, and that's not a good song. So if that's the only song that we know that you took a part in, that's not a good place to be in. Now, who knows? Maybe he is responsible for writing some really great music. But guess what? If you want that type of credit, at some point, you're going to have to just say it. Either say it or, or stop being a ghostwriter and just be a regular contributor to an album and just reserve your right to be able to flex on people and say, hey, I wrote this chorus, I wrote this hook, I wrote this verse. But otherwise, like, nobody's trying to hear you allude to writing all these hits for other people if you're not ready to actually spill the beans and say everything you did, or at least a part of what you did. But I don't know. Either way, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you agree with Yachty that hip hop is in a terrible place? Or do you think that people like him are only focusing on what's happening on a mainstream level?